So, first session, what a treat. So over the next few days, I think as Wade and Marinder have said, you're going to see kind of a lot of talks around the use of data and the success that we're seeing from our customers. But kind of what I thought would be good for us to start with is kind of a question around where does the data come from and how do you manage your web and mobile data? So in this session, we're going to go to the start. We're going to compare how over 10 years, two of our customers have been leveraging IQ for their data collection and discuss their different approaches and what they've done. So the aim of this session then is to give you a takeaway, some ideas around data collection and to enable you to compare maybe how you've got your data collection set up with those we're about to discuss. So as the title suggests, I've got some experts with a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding on this. And so as we've introduced, we've got Chris from Lloyds Banking Group and Christoffer from Nordea. So, gentlemen, welcome. So let's start with perhaps going a little bit more, rather than just the kind of the name and the brand. So let's maybe talk a little bit about the kind of the businesses that you work in. So Chris, let's start with you.
So I work for Lloyds Banking Group, and I think if you're UK-based, you'll probably actually know who we are. We've got about 30 million customers in the UK only, across 16 different brands. So you'll have heard of Lloyds Bank, but we've also got Halifax, Bank of Scotland, Scottish Widows, like sort of list. Honestly, I could just keep naming them because I think 16 might be underselling it a bit. What we've got, though, is we've got a mass of digital real estate. We've got 10 apps, I believe, but we've got over 200 different websites supporting them. And we're averaging at this point about 20 million logins every day. So a significant volume of data coming through all of this digital activity. On a personal level, I've been with Lloyds on and off in different divisions for about 12 years now, ever since I came out of university. And I manage a team that is responsible for one of the division's deployments of analytics and, responsible for deployment of all of the third-party tooling that we push through Tealium, which we'll go on to in a couple of slides. But interestingly, Christoffer here is from Nordea, and it's kind of it's a similar organization, but an entirely different setup.
Correct. Yeah, I'm Christoffer from Nordea Bank, which is it's the largest bank in the Nordics. We only have one brand, but we're situated in 4 different countries, so we have to juggle with different languages as well. And I've been at Nordea for more than 10 years, and I actually started when we were just 3 people, and now grown to a large team of 20 people. Very nice. And we have 5.2 digitally active customers, which log into the different platforms on a yearly basis, 1.5 billion times. We have 200 different websites and 10 different mobile apps, all of them running Tealium IQ.
So as we can see from the numbers on the screen, that on the outset, kind of very similar scale and kind of complexity, but let's maybe talk around, I guess, kind of what you've actually set up, and we'll start kind of seeing some of the differences in what you've delivered. So again, we'll start with you, Chris.
Basically, we run Tealium IQ on all of our 200 different websites using a single profile. We have one profile. You log into Halifax, you'll load that profile. You go to a public site for Black Horse online, you load that same profile. Every single website in Lloyds Banking Group is, for the most part, coming off of a single profile, aptly titled main. But what we use Tealium for is we went whole hog with Tealium, right? This was something we've had for about 10 years now. It was a great solution that we brought in to replace what was a bit of an internal workshop of crap, I'll be honest. But we put all of our tools through this at this point. We use it for its cookie compliance. So GDPR was a big point of bringing this in. But we put everything through this. So we got our live chat solution going through Tealium. We got our surveys going through Tealium. Analytics, we migrated from Web Trends to Adobe Analytics about 5 years ago. Again, Tealium made it much easier. So we put all of our tools, all of our third-party platforms that we want to use and make available through Tealium. But crucially, it's one single Tealium profile. And that is very different because I never even considered this. And really, it makes you think a lot about how we're set up compared to how Nordea are set up, because they've taken an entirely different approach, which makes much more sense, to be honest. I'm not even going to try and convince you, right, that it's the better solution.
Christopher.
Yes. We also had web trends, and we increasingly struggled with many different departments in getting the tag on the website, or the app for that matter. So we took a very structured approach. We sort of divided our different areas. We had things behind login, and then we had sort of unauthenticated places. We had apps. So that sort of made a landscape of 7 different libraries, which sort of ensures that we can target, we can tailor the functionality very specifically to a platform, and sort of don't do any cross-contamination across the different profiles. So 7 libraries, and then we have I think it's 130 plus profiles. I think we pruned a couple of them last week, actually. But around 130 profiles, which we then manage. And we have, across all those, we have 180 different extensions. And we have a quite extensive data layer of 550 different variables. But we also mainly use Tealium IQ to run our cookie solution and the Adobe tech stack. So that would be analytics, it would be target, it would be audience manager.
So obviously with kind of that many profiles and kind of there's a lot going on there. So let's maybe kind of switch now to talking around kind of the teams you have and how you manage that, and the process that you use in order to support kind of the setup that you have. So Chris, if you maybe kind of carry on your conversation in terms of kind of how you do that today.
Yeah, sure. So in my team, it's called Web Analytics and Online Optimization. We're sort of divided in 2 areas. One is for, that's our analysts, and then we have 10-ish implementation specialists, which I'm part of. And in order for us to ensure that we can operate and publish these things on an ongoing basis, we have counterparts in the business that help us verify changes that are being made ready in the QA environment before they go live. So we can sort of capture anything that might be off beforehand. And
Chris, what about
you have a similar approach?
It's a bit different, and to be honest, I'm going to pretend that we've got this perfect solution or this solution that I'm going to describe, but reality is we're, I guess, working towards that, but I would have told you the same thing about 3 years ago. So the way we want it is about a hub and a spoke model. Because we've got a single profile, everyone editing a single profile across all of our divisions, across all of our brands is, we'll get onto that in a bit, but it is dangerous, right? So the idea is that we could have this central hub, and they would implement tools in a way that it made it available to all of these spokes. So a spoke would work on an insurance division, it would work in a motor division. It would be people on the ground close to those brands, close to those journeys doing the tagging. And the spokes would come in and they would make changes to the same Tealium profile as well, but they would be more just specific to their area. So you'd have a hub building out a central, well, I'm going to say the word libraries, but it's not actually true, central functionality in Tealium that everyone could tap into, and then the spokes would tap into that one, edit it as needed, but really only focus on their area. In practice, what we've got is really about 5 total people in all of Lloyds Banking Group that make any edits into Tealium profile, and a good number of them are actually here, which is not a great, you know, who's monitoring websites at this point. The risk of it and the complexity of it means there isn't a lot of people making these changes. So I've got a team. I head up one of the spokes currently, and I set up a previous one. But my team are much more focused on tagging. So they will work with the developers to get the JavaScript code onto it to allow Tealium to operate in a very predictable way and to load the live chats, to load the analytics. So that's the ideal way, but my team are then made up of sort of half JavaScript engineers, half data analysts, where the job role is, it's the same person doing both. So the person that is responsible for doing the reporting, for building the dashboard, for making live chat turn on, is also the person that is responsible for making sure that can happen in the first place. So there's no abstraction of roles away to say, we don't have the analytics for this. Our response is actually, we don't have the analytics for this because I didn't set it up correctly. So it becomes a person's responsibility for the reporting to also have the data capture that exists in the first place to allow it. So we're very half technical, half analyst within this.
So kind of that's the process we've got there. So kind of maybe let's kind of drop in then to kind of what we see. If we were to kind of pull out like the top 3 or 4 advantages and disadvantages of the two approaches. And I know kind of between the three of us, we've discussed this, and maybe your views have changed over time. But the ones we've got on screen, Christoffer, maybe start us off. Is what do you see from your approach? Kind of what do you see kind of the advantages and the disadvantages, kind of the approach that you guys have taken over the last 10 or so years?
I think one of the main advantages is that we sort of we leverage the business to help us verify the changes, so that we are actually able to do verification of changes beforehand in the QA environment. So that reduces the sort of the testing overhead in my department, because it's sort of spread out to the business. Furthermore, it being separated out also reduces the risk. So if we introduce some things, we don't do big bang releases, so we do it by profile. So if we find something in one profile, then we can sort of retract that and ensure that we sort of solve the problem before it affects everything. And one of the things that we used there is actually, and we actually only used it once, and that was when we were very new Tealium customers. We have a kill switch, which basically turns off everything, which means then that if anything affects a website or an app, then we can turn off Tealium and keep the app or website running while we troubleshoot things, and then we can turn everything on again. And for the most part, we actually leverage the built-in Tealium extensions. Those work well for us. We have very few JavaScript extensions, and that actually also means that it's fairly easy to onboard new colleagues, because it's fairly easy to understand what happens during the whole load order. And we actually had big advantages of that a couple of years ago, because we had sort of a very large shift in employees. And then it was fairly easy to get new people up to speed, and they don't necessarily need to be hardcore developers.
And obviously the downside, there's always a downside. So what's the downside to the kind of, what do you see as the downside to the approach that you have?
Well, one of the main downsides is actually also, it's sort of the flip side of the advantage, is that we do have the business to help us do the publishing, but that comes also with a cost of, you know, coordinating and communicating to all those people. So that, of course, that takes some time, but we try to balance the time spent there. And then, of course, there's the risk of a fragmented data layer. So having 7 different libraries, of course, really emphasizes the need to standardize all across the libraries. And that can be a challenge sometimes. And
then, Chris, over to you. They resonate with you?
It's I mean, every time Christoffer goes through this stuff, it just absolutely makes sense. It clicks so many bells, and you think, actually, that's just, I'm going to stand up here and then tell you the advantages and disadvantages, and they're going to heavily weigh on the disadvantages. And they are opposite of what Nordea and Christoffer have done. But we have a single profile, obviously, and as part of that, the code that we deploy on every single web page is identical or derivative of each other. We have the same data variables, we have the same implementation instructions. What we see with a business like us, and there's about 25,000 people working in the digital department at Lloyds Bank, is we have developers that move from one division to another, they move from one brand or one area to another, and then they take that knowledge with them. They run away with our Tealium code and often build their own library for their application, which interacts with Tealium, and then they can port it and reuse it. So there's a lot of knowledge gained by the developers. There's a lot of standardization. We know that if we do the tagging in this way, that Tealium will respond exactly the same way as if I did it on this website versus this website. There is no different profiles, in which case there'd be something weird interacting with it that's perhaps different or outdated. And the other advantage, which again, this is going to spin heavily into disadvantage, right? You're all sitting there thinking already you're trying to weasel your way around this one. A single publish pushes all of our stuff live onto every single website at Lloyds Banking Group. So from a time perspective only, I can make a change and push that live, and it's live out onto all 200 websites. Sounds brilliant on the back of it, on sort of when I describe it like that. And if I didn't have a massive disadvantage section here, you might think that's a good solution. Because the disadvantages are exactly where it gets into that Christoffer's got this solution which has the opposite, has the advantages of our disadvantages. So the big one here, right, is, and this happens so often, we'll make a change and it will break something. And sometimes it's not our stuff that it breaks. So we're pushing a profile update live to 200 different websites, secure websites. I told you we've got like 20 million logins a day, right? These have got traffic on them. And the risk of that is massive. It's compounded by the fact we have a massive amount of JavaScript in Tealium. There is some out-of-the-box extensions and stuff we use, but a lot of it is that JavaScript editor. And we've put our own code in there. The documentation, I'll be honest, has not kept up with the amount of extensions, is a very polite way of saying it. There's some people here that work for Lloyds, and they've seen our Tealium profile, and they will know often documentation is limited to just what the extension title is. And that makes it very hard to onboard new people. But the risk as well, when you've got these JavaScript extensions that sit inside a JavaScript tool, is it's hard to understand how it fully interacts with each other. And we make mistakes a lot. Last year, I missed a comma when I was trying to add live chat into a new domain, and it brought down live chat every single website in Lloyds Banking Group. So massive mistake on that one, hands up, and I got away with that one. It was actually really good. It was only down for like 3 hours, but you know, and we've had much more serious instances as well. We're introducing JavaScript into websites. If we use a variable and set it at window level, which is one that happened recently, we brought down a payment journey. Really, really big problem at Lloyds Banking Group, and really shows the impact that we can have. We have 200 different websites, and there cannot exist the level of testing on every single website to prove that Tealium hasn't interacted negatively with something on that website. So, you know, as much as I talk about the advantages, the disadvantages of this are massive, and there'll be people in the audience that will look at that and say, why the hell would I even consider doing what Lloyds Banking Group have done? I can't even say it works for us. I can say it works, as in we're doing it. Can't say it works well, can't say it works, and this is the best approach for us. But this is what we do, and it works for us-ish, with the heavy caveats that I've outlined.
So I guess, taking your last comments then, looking to the future, what do you see yourselves doing or changing in the next, say, 6 to 12 months, or kind of what are you looking to kind of improve upon where you are today?
So the documentation is a massive problem. The JavaScript extensions are a massive problem. The solution is to move more of it into GitHub, so at least we got some version history around it, so that Tealium isn't having to do the version history stuff for us. That doesn't solve risk. I'm not going to pretend that's a solution. The increased use of the APIs that we'll start seeing as well. But I understand actually the API benefit is probably going to be much greater for you, because the other advantages is we're not doing 130 different publishers, but you can automate a lot of that with the APIs, Christoffer?
Yeah, that's right. So we're in the process actually of migrating from Adobe Analytics to Customer Journey Analytics. And by doing that we actually also need to change the tag. So we're actually also planning to implement the Adobe Experience Platform Web SDK, also through TealiumIQ. And again, we have 7 libraries, but we actually figured out a way to leverage the Tealium API to actually align the mappings across all the libraries. So that will be a huge time saver for us. And we've actually been working closely together with Tealium in terms of improving and optimizing the API, and we are looking very much forward to new features coming.
Yep, I say it's almost there, almost there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last question for me then. Obviously, one aspect of the conference, we're talking about kind of the use of AI, and I just wanted to put to the both of you guys in terms of not so much the use of the data in this context, but how have you seen AI and how has it impacted in your day-to-day and kind of how you interact and use Tealium? So maybe Christoffer, maybe start us off.
Well, in terms of Tealium, we're not leveraging AI yet. Other parts of the bank is slowly beginning to do so. But as we have a very structured approach to this, so I think that perhaps we won't leverage AI to do stuff for us, but it could be great if Tealium could create some AI that could spot inconsistencies or optimizing the load order, or are there any variables that are not used or mapped, that sort of thing. That could be great to have a tool that could sort of analyze and help us optimize the setup.
And Chris?
You can't get away with having a data conference, without having a question for AI on every one of these talks. But it's much like Christoffer. So we see usage of AI heavily within Lloyds. Obviously, we're not going to shy away from that sort of stuff. But we don't see much of it within Tealium, bar we might have some extensions, which I wouldn't say is written by AI, but is JavaScript aided by AI. The big hint of that one is that they're appropriately commented. So they actually describe what they are as opposed to the ones that we create ourselves. Where we see a lot of this AI developing is the tools that we deploy through Tealium. So we deploy Adobe Analytics, and they make big promises around smarter error alerting and stuff like that. Our surveys are always telling us they're improving their AI to generate smarter interactions, better responses and stuff like that. The one thing that is becoming very interesting is, at the moment I'm not trying, that sounds really defeatist. I am implementing a new live chat solution, and my division's doing it first and then rolling it out elsewhere. As part of that, that's when we get into the large language models. We're not going to have them interacting with customers, but we see all of the data that Tealium feeds, it will start feeding into that live chat solution, and for colleagues on the other end of the live chat will see the summaries. They will see the suggested next actions, follow up with this, or this is their past history that might indicate something to be concerned about. So we're never going to have stuff like LLMs customer facing, because we've all seen massive problems with that one, but we will have them supporting the colleagues on the back end, so helping them make quicker decisions, more consistent, and frankly there's some times where actually it does populate it for them and the colleague just has to agree to say, right, post this under my name into the chat. So we see so much development, and then there is the whole world of what we do with the Adobe data. We bring it down into our data warehouses, and the AI and machine learning will be massive off the back of that.
Okay, so I think that was kind of most of the questions we had for this session. Hopefully you've heard from two businesses, two different approaches. For me, kind of the call-outs I feel is the flexibility, the fact that you guys can have a very different approach to deliver on the same sort of business goals. And also, I think what comes through very loud is the balance of risk and time management, I think comes through quite clearly in terms of kind of the advantages and disadvantages that you guys have.
Is there any situation in which you would recommend to other new clients to do what we've done? That's how I got it. So this is from 2015. We've had this for 10 years, right? Is there any? Throw me a bone here, Alex.
I think if you were a smaller business with maybe 2 or 3, potentially you could do it. I think the advantage is, I think to Christoffer's point, I think the advantage is when we look at multiple domains, certainly when you're looking at secure and unsecure, I think the separation is a really good way to mitigate procedurally and technically any risk. So I think there's some real advantages. 150, 170, is that the right number? Could that maybe combine to a smaller number? Like maybe have you gone too far the other way?
Yeah.
Who knows? I think it's down to, for me, it's down to the people and the risk appetite, I think. The teams you have and the skills they have as to kind of what could work. I think from what Christoffer was saying, I don't think with the teams and the skills you've got would be able to manage IQ the way you've got it. And I think from your point of view, with only the smaller group, I think you'd struggle with Christoffer's. So I think it's really very much kind of people-centric is quite an important one.
Okay, so big takeaway, anywhere between 1 and 170 profiles.
Yes, somewhere in between is a good safe bet, I think. Magic. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I hope it was useful for everyone in the audience. Obviously, we're sort of a bit short on time now, so I won't ask for questions, but all 3 of us are obviously going to be around for the 2 days, so if anyone does have any questions, do come and find us. I'm sure we can have a long and lengthy debate. Thank you very much.